Welcome to A Girl in Progress. Let's get into the episode. Hey, Casey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm such a big fan of yours. So this is very exciting for me.
I'm a huge fan of yours. And like I was saying to you earlier, I've been following you for a while and all the amazing things you've been doing. So it's been so great to actually chat to you face to face. But you are a life coach, you're a social media expert, you're the founder of the Real Her Project. But I know you actually studied geological sciences at uni. So I'm super curious about, in your own words, how you sort of got from there to what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's like, I guess the story is the whole reason why I started the Real Her Project. Obviously, in high school, I kind of, did what everyone wanted me to do. I kind of thought I had to do the smart subjects and be the smart girl. And I was telling you before that I didn't necessarily follow the things that felt aligned to me. Like I had like this creative side in me. I like to read and write, did really well in those kind of areas, but I chose to kind of people please and, do the smart things. And I ended up doing a lot of science in high school. And I went into uni with a degree in biomedical science.
Wow.
But I failed my first year. So that was like life crushing. Like I thought, like, I don't even think I was 18 at the time. And I was just, life has ended. I've failed uni. What am I going to do? This is so embarrassing. And I ended up changing it to geology just because I was interested in nature and the earth and everything like that. And I went on and I did fine in it, but it really, when I graduated, I was just like, I'm staring into the next like 30, 40 years of business and of my career and my future. And it's just terrifying. Like I'm not passionate about this. And I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So it was not only guilt of like the fact that I just spent, 4 years at uni and $30,000 in, course fees, but it was also looking forward being like, my future doesn't excite me. So it was quite a terrifying place to be in. And so at the time with my partner, we went and moved overseas and lived in Canada in a ski resort for like 2 years, which was quite cool. And it was really the first time in my life where I got the chance to do a bit of research outside of like uni and school. I really got the opportunity to kind of go on YouTube and find these people who were making money online and starting their own business and kind of that entrepreneur space. It wasn't really spoken about, as much 4 or 5 years ago. It was still quite like an underground thing.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and I was kind of living overseas. So at the time I thought, that laptop lifestyle where I can, get my laptop and travel anywhere in the world and kind of make money from anywhere in the world was really exciting for me. And that's kind of what ignited that passion. But obviously there was such a disconnect, and I was learning from a lot of males online. It was such a male dominated space, especially Gary Vee was just kind of on the rise at that time. A lot of my mentors online were just men, and I really there's a different approach to women in business and how they kind of become successful. So for me, I was like, all right, how can I bridge this gap? I want to be successful in business, and I'd love to learn how other women do it. So that's where the Real Her Project was born. It was literally just, it started off as like short documentaries, and really it was just about learning for me. And from there, obviously, as the years have gone on, it's become like a personal development and business development journey for me. And I've just kind of shared that as I've gone along, and in turn built a community, I guess, as well, and learned a lot about social media on the way. And so kind of to wrap this big long-winded story up, my partner is a videographer, and so we kind of teamed up together with another business partner as well and started a social media and content creation business as well. So I kind of get to help females kind of, go through that business journey a lot quicker than what I did. And then I also have this other business on the side where, we're helping small businesses actually make change and build and grow an audience on their social media as well. So there's lots going on, and I'm so happy that I didn't just, I didn't just cave at the end of my degree and just go, oh, well, this is my life. Now I'm just going to suck it up and off I go. I really kind of stood firm and wanted more for myself and wanted more for my future. And yeah, it's taken a long time, but it's so much more rewarding to be here now, I guess.
Yeah. Did you deal with any criticism in those early days where you did sort of diverge from the path, that you could have after uni and gone into, I guess, what geological scientists do? Like, did you have to deal with any criticism there, and how did you manage that and stay on, on your own path and what felt true to you?
I didn't necessarily deal with anyone like criticizing me. It was how I felt on the inside. Obviously, I went to quite a good school, and it was like pretty much like, you finish school and you go to uni and you kind of start that corporate life, or that kind of very traditional path. And so a lot of it was a lot of resistance within myself. Like, what am I doing? I'm really going against the grain here. And I felt like people were judging me when I first started. I'm sure they weren't. We already spoke about this previously, but when you think people are judging you, they're really not. They're too engrossed in their own lives. But for me, when I first kind of decided that I was going to put myself out there was so much fear, and I guess the fact of being vulnerable and putting yourself out there was something that really scared me, and something I'd never really done before as well. But I think when it's something you care so much about, you find a way, and you kind of get to a point where it's just like if you're my friend, or if you support me, you're going to support me no matter what, because it's something that I love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the people who support you, they don't care what you're doing for work. They just love you for you, and they're going to be there for you no matter what. I want to ask you, how did you fight through that fear? How did you fight through that inner critic in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you just get started, I suppose? I'm also curious to know, this is kind of two separate questions, but how you even I guess started making videos. Like, did you kind of have to just like fumble your way through and figure it out as you went?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing that helped, I think this probably relates to both of the things that you asked me, like how I got started and then how did I figure out videos, was like, I kind of just made a decision that there was going to be no other way. Like I did, when we came home from Canada, I went and worked in the corporate world in Sydney, which is quite full on.
Yeah, I can imagine.
For a little while, and especially after like leaving remote Canada and then just like jumping into one of Australia's biggest cities, it was quite overwhelming. And I gave it a go, and I feel like I just burnt all my bridges. I was like, this isn't for me either. There is no other choice here. Like, this has to kind of work. And it wasn't like putting pressure on myself, but it was just like every time I felt like that, oh, I don't want to do this, or this all feels a little bit too hard, or I'm too scared. It's like, yeah, okay. But like, do you remember how it felt to get up, that Monday morning and have that like anxiety, that dread, that stress of like working in a job that you don't like, or that fear? Yeah, you feel fearful now, but like, what's that fear of looking into your future in an area that working in an area that you don't love? Like, I guess it was kind of giving myself a little bit of a tough talk, because it was like, what are the other options here? Like, you should definitely, if you're going to feel fearful about something, do it with something that you love. And so that's really like how I kind of found the courage to take the next step. And I think also easing myself in by like interviewing people and kind of just being the learner to start, and not necessarily like jumping out there being like, I have all the answers. I kind of took it as a way to kind of take people on my journey. And they've all kind of seen me grow, and I'm not really like that afraid to be awkward or be weird or, kind of mess up. I've kind of just made that a part of the brand. I guess it's called the Real Her Project. So I have to kind of step up like that. Yeah, like there's no other choice. And so once I kind of just owned it and rolled with it, it's kind of just become a journey in itself. And video was the same. Like, it was like, I still like get nervous from time to time when that red light comes on and it's recording, you get the sweaty palms still, but I tell everyone it's just a matter of continuously just like doing it and messing up and trying again and learning and growing, and you get there over time. And I think probably if people are listening right now, I'm not the loudest person in the room. I'm a quiet person and introverted, and I don't have I wouldn't say that I was born with camera skills or, you know, being able to perform in front of the camera or anything. I've just kind of owned who I am and being okay with it, and also being okay with the fact that there's no other option. Casey, you've got to do this because like you want to make what you love work. And I think that's really what's kind of helped me push through that fear, and just accepting that it's there too, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, because it's for a greater purpose and a greater vision.
Yeah, I say that all the time. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think it's so true what you're saying. Like, I relate so much to being, I guess, a bit introverted, a little bit awkward sometimes. And you just have to own that. Like, that's the beauty of having your own thing. When you are your brand, you just have to authentically step into that, because what's the other option? People can see right through it when you're trying to be someone you're not, and people appreciate it so much more. And I think that's the beauty of social media now, that like there is such a focus on originality and being yourself. So I love that. And when you started Real Her, did you have any idea where it was going to go? Did you have a vision for, you know, or a 5-year plan, or has it evolved in a way that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I think when I first started, I was really interested in helping girls in that kind of high school space, because I feel like for me, that was really where I had a lot of struggles. Obviously, like I just went into uni, but I didn't, you know, it wasn't necessarily an area that, number one, I was good at or that I enjoyed. So I felt like that was a really important space to be in. But as I kind of grew through it and worked through it and developed myself, and I kind of found these skills in social media, and I really enjoyed that. And then I kind of studied as a life coach as well. I kind of found a nice niche between the life coaching itself and a lot of the mindset tools, and then the business strategy as well. I found like that was a really nice little niche for me. So currently I, you know, really like helping, you know, women that work full-time kind of in that corporate role transition into an entrepreneur, because so much of that is mindset, and only like 20% of it is actually like the business work. And then I feel like eventually I'd love to, you know, go back towards the high school market. But I think when you are just your business and you kind of have that service-based business, you've got to be very, very clear. And when you've got other things on the go as well, you've got to be really clear and definite about who exactly you want to serve in the best way, and who you can show up for in the best way as well. And that's why I really felt like that niche for me is my story and it's my journey, and I can talk about it until the cows come home. So that's kind of how it's developed for me over time.
Yeah, and I feel that we do sort of end up serving people or talking to people or envisioning people who are kind of like us, or have been where we are. And, you know, sometimes you find that people that are sort of outside of maybe what you imagine, like really connect with your work. But I think you definitely do, like you said, you have to have a clear vision in mind on who you're actually speaking to and serving. So I think that's awesome that you're so clear on that. And how do you go about balancing, you know, the social media side of what you do, working with clients, more agency side with, I guess, your own thing with Real Her? Like, how does that sort of look like in terms of splitting and balancing your time?
Yeah, so it actually like all came ahead for me like a couple months ago. So it's really interesting that you asked me this as well. Obviously, they're both service-based businesses. So they both require an exchange of my time, and it gets quite full on from time to time. But for me, I'm a massive fan of time blocking. We had a discussion about this on my podcast just before, really being clear about what you want to accomplish for the day, and kind of not getting caught up in the busy work and the work that doesn't move the needle forward. So currently I do full time, like probably about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on my social media business. And then the afternoons are for the Real Her project. So it kind of helps me balance the two and give them both enough energy. And then obviously in the future, I'm building out a course for the Real Her project. So it doesn't have to be so, I guess, one-on-one intensive, because then there's only so much time I can give, and I want to help as many people
Exactly.
as possible.
There's only so many hours of the day, and there's only so much of you can give. So I think that's a
Yeah.
really awesome way to scale your message. And we spoke a lot on your podcast about self-development, and it's something that we're both extremely passionate about. I'm curious as to, and you kind of touched on this with YouTube and the YouTubers that you watch, but what was your introduction to self-development? Was there a book that you read, or even to business, that really changed everything for you, or a podcast you listened to?
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I'd probably say my partner, he is the person that kind of introduced it all to me.
Same.
He is way more, he's probably more like the creative side, and like he likes to look into things and explore things and look up things. And so I'm more of like a logical, just like give me all the information, meditating and journaling and all of this stuff. I'm like, what are you going on about? Like, this is weird. Like, this is too spiritual for me. That's not the kind of person that I am. And then obviously, yeah, when we went overseas, I kind of got exposed a little bit more to YouTube and realized that you can kind of have the balance of like a spiritual kind of more personal journey, but then also apply it to real life as well, which is something that I like to kind of blend. Obviously books like The Secret like changed so much of my life. I was quite a negative thinker in my late teens, early 20s, pretty much a victim to the world, thought that things just happened to me. Everything was negative. And when I started to kind of change the way that I looked at the world, the way that I looked at myself, and kind of started to practice some of those techniques, not as like not step by step the way they do in The Secret, but more just kind of, raising my vibration and really practicing gratitude and trying to find the good in life. That's really when I saw a massive shift in myself. And I feel like that was a big game changer for me.
Yeah. And do you have any practices in terms of that you do every day now, whether it's in terms of mindfulness or manifesting or, anything, self-care?
Yeah, I have quite a lot actually. I definitely like my go-to every morning is journaling, and like the first thing I'll do every morning is say what I'm grateful for. Like that's such a big thing for me. A lot of affirmation work, kind of just, rewiring that brain and letting yourself know that you are capable of doing things that perhaps you've told yourself for like 20 years you couldn't do, like really learning to rewire those thought patterns and do that on a continuous and repetitive basis. And meditation isn't in and out for me. Like I'm not just going to be like, I meditate every day. It's very hard to do every day. Probably about 80% of the time, I always put at least 10 minutes into meditation. And I really do think that that's helped separate my thoughts when I'm so busy and so stressed and I've got so much going on. It's really cool to be able to be like, Casey, you're getting emotional here, or, maybe you're just a little bit tired, and just being able to call yourself out on things, I feel like is a really great tool to have in business and in life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with meditation, people do think that you need to do like half an hour to an hour every day. And like, I'm the same as you. I do 10 minutes, like max.
Yeah.
And I find it
Yeah.
still makes a huge impact because it just makes you, one, it's a great way to start your day, especially if you're doing it before checking your phone. Like it just feels far more intentional, and it just makes you more aware of what's going on in your brain and what's going on in your body. And it's like a great way to change. So it doesn't have to be so all or nothing.
No, definitely not. And that's the biggest thing. Like, I think so much, and once again, this is something that we've spoken about together, but I just feel like there is so much pressure to like, in order to grow as a human and to learn and to kind of, be great at personal development, you've got to have all these, things in your day, when really it's just about what do you need to perform optimally and what feels good to you. If you don't want to journal, if that doesn't relate to you, then don't do it. Like if you want to meditate for 5 minutes a day and that makes you feel amazing, like then that's what you need to be focusing on, rather than, trying to get it all done. It's what works best for you and what you need at the time.
Yeah, it's the same as exercise. Like if it feels like a
Yeah.
chore, then you're probably not doing the right type of exercise for you. Like it's meant to make you feel good and it's meant to be something that you
Yeah.
can stick to long term. So if it
Yeah.
feels bad, then what's the point? Um,
Yeah.
and is there anything that you do in terms of, I guess, setting boundaries in your life? Like in terms of like, are you someone who will like turn your phone off at a certain time every night or only check your emails at like a certain time?
For me, I am probably it's more boundaries when I wake up first thing in the morning. I really feel like I want to like dedicate, even if it's just like half an hour to getting myself in the best state. I feel like then the whole day just works out so much better, and I just am in a better space. Things, I can work quicker. I'm, communicate better. So I like to definitely leave some space in the morning to do the journaling, to do the affirmations, to meditate, to really, just take the time before you just like get into the rat race of life. I try and kind of put my phone to the side as much as I can. It's hard when you like kind of work in that social media space to kind of be separate from the phone. But when I'm not working on it, it's on do not disturb and put to the side. However, I do like work in a team with my social media business as well. So like making sure that you are communicating with each other and being like, hey, I'm having a break. Like I'm just going to go for a walk for an hour, or at 8 o'clock, my phone turns off. So I'm sorry if I don't I don't reply to your text straight away, or whatever it is, just like being, I guess, like boundaries are important, but then also communicating them with the people that you surround yourself with are just as important as well. But yeah, for me, the biggest thing is just making sure that I'm set up for the day and that I'm not like doing work that's not moving the needle forward, because time is so precious. And, you can spend a year like just doing busy work and random work that doesn't actually change anything. And I did do that early days with the Real Her project when I was figuring it out. I'd just do the most random stuff, and I'd like, it'd be a month later and it's like, what have I achieved? Like, have I hit those goals? So because time is so precious to me, it's about making sure that I use it super wisely, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, perfectionism is a huge thing that we cover on this podcast. I'm curious to know if
Yeah.
that's something that you've experienced or struggled with at all, and if so, like how you've overcome it.
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely the kind of person who will just like sit on things and read them like 1,000 times and like overanalyze it and need it to be perfect, like from the get-go. But I've realized over time that like when you just sit on things, nothing happens, and you don't grow, nothing moves forward. Like you said earlier, people overtake you while you're kind of sitting and questioning and over analyzing. You could just kind of put it out there and refine. And for me, I'm someone who's very much like I'll have the idea and I'll kind of put it all together, and then I'll just sit on it and I won't do anything, and I won't. It's been like a self-sabotaging behavior that I've had for a long time that I've just called myself out on. And it's like, you can fail, and when I say fail, I mean like a first attempt at learning. Like it is okay to kind of put something out there and it doesn't work, and then be like, okay, so like how do I tweak this, instead of being like, nah, scrap it, like this is a reflection of who I am and I'm the worst and I suck, which I've gone through so much. It's more about just like trying to get that emotion out of it and looking at it objectively and being like, okay, like this didn't work out perfectly the first time, but how can I refine now and continue to refine? And how do I, look at it on a long-term scale rather than focusing on what you're doing right now and trying to get it absolutely perfect. It's like, let's get it out there. Let's see what happens, and being open to tweaking and growing as you go.
Yeah, sometimes you need to get that feedback in order to
Yeah.
tweak. Like people might
Yeah.
see something that the need might be different, or they might see something
Yeah.
that you hadn't even noticed. Like it's so
Yeah.
subjective, and we get too like caught up. Like we can't actually see beyond what's right in front of us. So I think it's
Yes.
super helpful to just get it out there and fine tune later.
Yeah, well, it's like, you can literally sit on something and hope and pray that it'll be perfect, but you'll never know until you put it out there and you actually like get that response back. So it's almost like it's probably never going to be perfect until you kind of get that feedback too.
Yeah, exactly. And perfect doesn't exist, but you know, you might get it as close to perfect based on the feedback, based on what your target client or customer actually wants.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's kind of just guessing games. And
Yeah.
you've interviewed loads of like inspiring and successful women on your show. What are some of the biggest things that you've learned from them?
Yeah, for me, I think it's so interesting because it was always about like how to be successful. Like that's kind of where it started, and I want to like interview these people who I deem to be successful. But what I've kind of learned along the way is like success isn't necessarily about like the money or the material things or, you know, kind of living a certain lifestyle. It's about how you feel on the inside. And I know that sounds so lame. Like I can literally like hear how lame it sounds, but it's the truth. It's about waking up every day and just like genuinely being excited and happy and keen to kind of work, and your work is like an extension of who you are, and it doesn't feel like there's massive resistance in your life. And to me, that's kind of what, and then life will be different, then I'll be successful. But I feel like every time you reach a goal in business or in life, you kind of want the next thing anyway. So it's more about how you feel on the inside every single day, no matter what you're kind of doing, whether it's career or relationships or life in general. I think the biggest lesson that all of these like inspirational women have taught me is how do you feel every day? Like check in with yourself and make sure that you are actually happy in what you're doing, because if you are, then like nothing else really matters. Those external factors don't matter because you feel content within yourself.
Yeah, so true. I'm a huge believer that like how you spend your days is how you spend your life. Like if you're constantly just thinking about what's next, not actually focusing on how you feel every day. Like it's how you feel every day that makes a good life. Essentially, it's not the accomplishments along the way. And
Definitely.
what does being your real self look like to you, or what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it kind of, you know, stems off what I was just saying before, but it's just about being happy, being present, being authentic, and just being you, being vulnerable and owning it.
Girl who wants to sort of emulate a career like yours, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give her?
Oh, that's a big one. You know what? I think it would be start like a long form piece of content, whether it's a blog, whether it's a podcast, whether it's YouTube, and just start talking about what interests you and start interviewing people that are kind of in that space or people that you look up to, and just have no expectations other than just learning and, you know, kind of delving into that space. And you literally from there can build communities, you can make connections, and then eventually you can ultimately turn that into a business. I think a lot of people think, oh, like tomorrow I'm just gonna wake up and I'll start an Instagram page and like I'll make money, right? But there's so much that goes on in between, obviously deciding that you want to be in business and then, you know, actually making a living from it. And I think the best thing that I ever did with the Real Her project was build a brand and build community and kind of go through the awkwardness and just like take them on the journey with me. Because now when I feel like I'm in the space to kind of sell something or, you know, monetize it, they trust you, they know they love you, and there's less kind of awkward selling that goes on as well. And I really do think that that's probably the best place to start. And that's what I tell everyone that kind of wants to do this as well. Just start with a long form piece of content and kind of work those kinks out, work out that perfectionism, you know, get all of that stuff out there and then build a brand. And you can take that anywhere. And that's really, what working online is all about.
Yeah, that's such solid advice. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's next for you? What's on the horizon for the future?
Oh, yeah. So I've written out a course, basically a 10 module course on how to go from being a full-time employee to kind of building out that brand. Like I was just telling you before, it's called Employee to Entrepreneur,
Amazing.
which is very exciting. But the biggest thing is I have to like video record it all. And you've all just heard about my time. So it's just about finding the time to kind of get those videos recorded and out to the world. And then that'll kind of be what's next for the Real Her project, so that I can find a bit of balance, work-life balance moving forward, and still serve and show up the way I want to for my audience, but also have the energy for my other business as well. So yeah, it's an exciting time. It's such a cool time to kind of be alive, and we get the opportunity to kind of create courses online and teach online and build businesses online. I feel really grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, the potential is limitless. Like we are super
Yeah.
lucky, and especially
Yeah.
now, obviously online courses are huge. So I'm super excited to see what yours looks like.
Thanks.
And where can everyone find you in the Real Her project?
I pretty much just send everyone to Instagram. It's just at the Real Her project, because everything stems out from there. Like you can find my website, you can find the podcast, you can learn a little bit more about Employee to Entrepreneur. We can DM there. That's probably like the main hub for me. Yeah, if you want to come and say hi, and I'd love to hear if you enjoyed this episode and yeah, what you learned from it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll pop those links in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Casey. I've loved chatting to you, and thank you so much for sharing your journey and your experience and your takeaway tips. I feel like anyone listening to this at home is going to be super inspired, and I am as well.
Oh, thank you. And thank you once again for having me. I love everything that you do, Emma. You're awesome.
So are you. Thank you so much. You can also check us out over on agirlinprogress.com, the online destination for women working on themselves for themselves. Or get social with us on Instagram at _girlinprogress. Can't wait to see you there.